Robin has always been more than one person, but not every version of the Boy Wonder survived DC's ever-changing multiverse. Across alternate Earths, future timelines, and Elseworlds stories, DC created Robin variants with darker paths, unique identities, and bold new takes on Batman's legendary partner. Some looked destined for bigger roles, while others became instant fan favorites. Then, they quietly disappeared. Whether because of reboots, shifting continuity, or changing editorial priorities, these Robins were simply left behind. But which forgotten Boy Wonders deserve another chance? Here are 10 Robin variants DC completely abandoned. At number 10 is Tom Wayne. Introduced in Robin 3000 issue 1 in 1992 by Byron Preiss and P. Craig Russell, Tom Wayne was a phenomenal futuristic spin on the Boy Wonder. Set on a 31st century Earth ruled by tyrannical alien overlords known as the Sculp, Tom was the direct descendant of Bruce Wayne. Rather than a sidekick wearing brightly colored spandex, Tom was a hardened rebellion leader wielding laser technology and navigating a cyberpunk dystopia. It was a mature science fiction reimagining proving the Robin mantle could easily anchor its own standalone universe without Batman. Despite featuring breathtaking artwork and a compelling hook, DC editorial completely pulled the plug once the Prestige format series ended. They never bothered to integrate the timeline into their wider multiverse maps, effectively orphaning the character. By ignoring Tom, the publisher lost an amazing action property. He's a top-tier sci-fi property sitting in a drawer, while Batman Beyond gets all the futuristic glory. At number 9 is the Toy Wonder. Debuting in Grant Morrison and Val Semik's DC 1 Million Issue 1 in 1998, the Toy Wonder operated as the robotic sidekick to the Batman of the 853rd century. This advanced AI was specifically programmed with the digitized personality of an optimistic, youthful Bruce Wayne. He served as the vital psychological anchor for a hyper-grim, Pluto-based Dark Knight, executing the classic dynamic through the lens of profound, far-future artificial intelligence. However, when the massive line-wide crossover concluded, this programmed prodigy practically vanished. Although Morrison occasionally referenced that era in later epics, the larger editorial apparatus showed absolutely zero interest in maintaining the character's legacy, reducing him to a forgotten 1990s footnote. This brilliant concept offered an incredible philosophical playground, a synthetic boy representing his mentor's lost childhood innocence. In today's era of exploring robotics and deep emotional trauma, this robotic sidekick striving to prove his humanity represents a truly unwritten masterpiece. Taking the 8th spot is John Grayson. Introduced in Earth 2, World's End Issue 1 in 2014 by Daniel H. Wilson, Marguerite Bennett, and Mike Johnson, John Grayson presented a brilliant multiversal twist on the sidekick mythos. In this post-apocalyptic timeline, Dick Grayson finally ascended to the mantle of Batman. To prevent the new Dark Knight from losing his humanity, his own son stepped up to wear the domino mask. Readers immediately connected with this deeply emotional father-son dynamic, placing the original Boy Wonder into the mentor seat guiding his own bloodline. But this legacy was an industry casualty of line-wide rebranding. When DC initiated the Rebirth Initiative to repair their mainstream continuity, they systematically dismantled the entire Earth 2 imprint. John's tenure was cut brutally short, his unresolved narrative erased to focus purely on Earth Zero. The publisher completely wasted Dick's ultimate evolution. Fans have begged for decades to see Nightwing as a father figure, but DC left his actual son to rot on a dead Earth. If you think those variants got a raw deal, wait until you see the characters we have coming up, including the first true Dead Boy Wonder, a literal alien monster, and a Robin legally locked away in a corporate vault. At number 7 is Lance Bruner. Introduced in Bob Haney and Neil Adams' The Brave and the Bold issue 83 in 1969, Lance Bruner represents one of the most tragically forgotten footnotes in Batman's extensive comic book history. Following the sudden death of his father, this deeply troubled, rebellious teenager was legally adopted by Bruce Wayne. Unlike the eternally optimistic Dick Grayson, Lance was a manipulative delinquent who constantly clashed with his billionaire guardian. After stumbling upon the Batcave's hidden secrets while Dick was away, the arrogant youth audaciously stole a spare Robin costume. Attempting to prove his worth on the dangerous streets of Gotham, Lance ultimately found himself completely outmatched by ruthless criminals. In a sudden moment of profound redemption, the makeshift Boy Wonder heroically threw himself into the line of fire, sacrificing his own life to save the Dark Knight. Consequently, this complex, deeply flawed sidekick remains permanently buried within the publisher's vintage comic vault. At number 6, we have Jarro. During Scott Snyder's explosive Justice League run in 2019, Batman unexpectedly adopted a fragment of the terrifying alien conqueror Sparrow. Named Jarro, this psychic starfish bonded intensely with the Dark Knight, actively sporting a miniature uniform and aggressively declaring himself as Bruce's ultimate favorite. Despite the inherently bizarre premise, Snyder injected the dynamic with genuine heart, transforming a monstrous spore into a fiercely loyal, telepathic son willing to sacrifice everything for Earth's heroes. Yet this beloved extraterrestrial fell victim to the ever-shifting creative guard. Following the conclusion of the death metal epic and the dawn of a new publishing era, subsequent writers simply ignored the character entirely. Editorial quietly allowed him to fade into absolute obscurity, removing him from the active vigilante roster without a single line of in-universe explanation. Shelving this character robs current continuity of its most radically original, wildly entertaining, and charmingly bizarre concept in 20 years. At number 5 is Sparrow. Spawned from the legendary intercompany crossover in Legends of the Dark Claw, issue 1 in 1996 by Larry Hama and Jim Balent, Sparrow emerged as the spectacular fusion of the Boy Wonder and Marvel's Jubilee. Operating alongside the ultra-violent Batman and Wolverine hybrid, this wisecracking mutant-powered mall rat offered a perfect energetic counterbalance to her brooding mentor. Unlike other entries, this particular abandonment stemmed entirely from real-world legalities rather than poor fan reception or shifting creative teams. As the 90s crossover boom faded and the corporate rivalry between Disney and Warner Brothers hardened, the amalgam universe transformed into an impassable legal minefield. Lawyers permanently locked her away in a corporate vault, guaranteeing she would never grace printed pages again. While endless red tape currently keeps her buried, Jubilation Lee remains a beautiful monument to a bygone era of true industry collaboration, representing the ultimate retro nostalgia trip for veteran comic readers everywhere. At number 4 is Robin Redblade. In 1994, Chuck Dixon and Enrique Alcatina utilized Detective Comics' annual issue 7 to construct a breathtaking 17th century pirate universe. In this swashbuckling reality, the Dark Knight operated as Captain Leatherwing, a formidable privateer sailing the high seas. His sidekick was a scrappy Kingston Street urchin who stowed away on the galleon, ultimately earning his spot among the crew and adopting the moniker Robin Redblade. This brilliant reinvention stripped away all high-tech gadgets, leaving a pure analog dynamic fueled entirely by flintlocks and cutlasses. Once the publisher's thematic annuals initiative concluded, however, executives completely moved on. Aside from a microscopic cameo on a future multiverse map, Captain Leatherwing's trusty cabin boy was abandoned, as company creators failed to recognize the massive franchise potential. Leaving this cabin boy stranded in the vault denies fans a spectacular, mature-themed pirate epic, where the Bat family battles cleverly reimagined rogues across the high seas. But stick around for our top 3, where we uncover a radically corrupted sidekick, an armored tech genius, and an alternate reality boy wonder permanently broken by pure psychological abuse. The number 3 spot is for Stanley's Robin. When comic legend Stan Lee crossed the aisle to reimagine classic heroes in Just Imagine Stan Lee creating Robin in 2001 alongside John Byrne, he completely inverted the established sidekick trope. In this distinct reality, the teenage acrobat was not a partner. He was a lethal, deeply resentful orphan manipulated into serving the villainous Reverend Dark as a ruthless enforcer. This corrupted youth actively antagonized the local protector before ultimately breaking his mental conditioning. As soon as the standalone imprint wrapped up its dedicated specials, however, executives essentially deleted the entire creative initiative. Because this interpretation strayed so radically from the core brand, his redemption arc remained completely isolated to a single forgotten issue. Dropping this specific variant meant missing out on absolute narrative gold. A compelling psychological thriller about a boy attempting to shed his identity as a living weapon without initial billionaire salvation remains an incredible unexplored storytelling goldmine. At number 2 is Carrie Kelly. While Frank Miller's iconic successor is universally recognized, Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray's brilliant 2012 reinvention in Ami Call Me Batgirl issue 1 remains largely forgotten. Within this anime-inspired, female-led continuity, the vibrant character transformed from a scrappy, slingshot-wielding kid into Barbara Gordon's extraordinarily intelligent, tech-focused cousin. Rocking a radically stylized mechanized armored suit, she functioned as the indispensable analytical backbone for her reality's crime-fighting operations. This digital-first imprint suffered from highly erratic release schedules and constantly shifting creative teams. When online sales failed to meet strict corporate expectations the following year, executives abruptly axed the entire experimental line. Consequently, this distinct technological genius was permanently deleted from the publisher's active roster. The company still struggles to utilize this heroine outside her original dystopian shadow. This unique iteration proved she could successfully thrive as a modern, fiercely independent technological operative. Yet that promising narrative pathway was completely discarded by top management forever. At number 1 is Talon. Conceived by Jeff Johns and Sterling Gates within the New 52's Justice League issue 23.4 in 2013, this Earth 3 incarnation served as a horrific subversion of the classic sidekick mythos. Rather than finding a loving mentor, this alternate Richard Grayson suffered under Owlman, an abusive psychopath who slaughtered the young boy's family solely to mold him into a remorseless assassin dubbed Talon. Following the chaotic finale of the Forever Evil crossover, editorial attention narrowed exclusively onto the adult crime syndicate members. Because of this, his harrowing survival saga was completely tossed aside, leaving him without a dedicated narrative for well over 10 years. This neglected antagonist embodies the ultimate Dark Mirror scenario, demonstrating the chilling outcome if a malevolent guardian systematically crushed a brave hero's legendary optimism. Leaving this broken protagonist on the shelf completely deprives modern Nightwing of a deeply personal, terrifying, multiversal villain who perfectly mirrors everything he could have become. These forgotten Robins deserve another chance. Comment your favorite variant, press the subscribe button now, and turn on notifications for more DC deep dives.